Untitled Boothbay Board of Selectmen to order. First thing on the agenda this evening, we have Mohammed Osman from Osman Page LLC. He's the managing partner. Good evening.
Good evening.
We asked Mohammed to be here to explain the service that we proposed at the last meeting, and in front of you there should be a PowerPoint presentation that Mohammed's given us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity here. And we did watch actually the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I'll try to hopefully answer as many of your questions as possible, all of your questions. And one of the common themes I think we want to touch on early on is the scope of the service and what's really included in the proposal. We are a provider of a fully outsourced accounting department, which is inclusive of your typical bookkeeping function that you would see in a normal small to mid-sized organization in terms of basic vendor management, entering invoices, printing checks, and payroll processing. Our service actually range from CFO type level work, going to a controllership or control level work, all the way to the bookkeeping and the clerical. So the proposal that was presented is inclusive of all that, inclusive of also payroll processing fees if there are any fees that are being paid right now. And that's, it's really hard to look at an organization, small and medium size specifically, and try to establish an accounting function with one person per se. Normally the common sense says, okay, I need 40 hours a week, so I'm going to hire one person for 40 hours a week. The reality is it doesn't work that way, because you really need 4 people working 10 hours a week, because you can't pay vendors, do payroll, close the books, work with the auditors, etc., all at the same time. And that's what our model actually brings to the table, is that entire function from start to finish, and not just the bookkeeping aspects of it. As organizations kind of grow, they get more complex, and more complex mean that you start seeing additional requirements that are not necessarily within the bookkeeping function. So you start having the need for a regular, reliable financial statements, management discussions, decision making of decisions that are being made on a day-to-day basis that require financial input and financial data. That is all part of the package. Also, you get more complex as you get into an audit level, where whether it's fiduciary or compliance requirements, you start having audit requirements and some of the more complex internal controls, separation of duties, which is also very hard to accomplish when you have just one person doing the bookkeeping, for example. And that's kind of the complexities that start to surface as organizations grow in size and in need from an accounting function. So I think it's very important to clarify that you can't compare really what we do compared to a typical bookkeeping, because bookkeeping is usually about 30–35% of a complete accounting function, what's needed for that. And that's really what we're proposing here. That's what our model does, is a fully outsourced accounting department. So it's really a decision to start laying the foundation for that kind of function within the organization, and basically start driving the benefits that come from that, from having that function in terms of assistance on a day-to-day basis, again with financial reporting, having reliable information, dealing with auditors, all the way through making sure we have clean and smooth audit at the end of the year as well. So I think that was a common theme that I saw in the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to kind of clarify the scope of what is being included in that price. Everything that we do is included in that proposal. It's one flat fee. There's no additional fees that come on top of that. It's also important to understand how that works, because I think the concept is a little new, and it's not common for small and medium-sized organizations. Usually you hear about it with larger companies where it's actually have more financial benefit, direct financial benefit to those organizations. The model works, we don't like to call ourselves vendors, because we actually, everything we do is about really staying away from that notion. Okay? We are really your accounting department, we just sit in a different building. So in terms of access to the staff and to the group on a day-to-day basis, in terms of interaction with the group on a day-to-day basis and with the organization, It's literally seamless in that fashion because the purpose of it is to give you financial support. It's to support the organization, support the activity on a day-to-day basis, and not just being a vendor who would come in every 3 months or 6 months and do some work and then just leave. Typically, organizations outsource for multiple reasons. And there's 3 main reasons really why an organization would consider outsourcing. One of them is, of course, cost savings. And cost has different faces. I mean, you could be talking about current cost, which is I'm paying X today and I'm looking to reduce that cost with a short term or over a long term period. Avoiding future costs, for example, so you know that you are headed towards having to hire or having to add staff and having to add the resources, therefore you're looking to avoid having to make that decision. And also the biggest piece, which is a lot of we always bring up to our clients that we work with, which is the added value, the cost value. There's something called opportunity cost, which is the cost of having core staff or core members of the organization doing something that is really not what they do. And therefore taking away that time and that resources that could be focused on the core functions of the organization, which eventually has a cost, and actually usually it has the highest cost because the organization itself tends to suffer at the end of the day, basically, with those resources not being fully utilized. So that's as far as the cost. The other reason organizations outsource also for skill set, and that's when you get to a point where you start to realize that I need to address multiple needs, and I don't have the skill set in-house, nor it would be cost beneficial to try to actually go and recruit and retain all those resources in-house as an organization, especially a small and mid-sized business. So that's a spot. Skill set also is a big piece of it because, as I said, an accounting function ranges from CFO level all the way to controller, general accounting, bookkeeping. And what we bring to the table is that, basically that range. So, as there are multiple experience, multiple background that are going to be involved with the financial function, and therefore we're able to bring in the pieces that are needed as needed, and basically that provides you with that wide spectrum of skill set and resources that you need. And the most common probably scenario is a lot of the decisions that are being made on a day-to-day basis related to debt, to funds, to borrowing, etc. Those are all things, purchasing of assets, those are all things that need a little bit more than your basic bookkeeping in order to actually make that decision with the right information. And the process really is very simple. We would be the accounting staff, again, sitting in a different location. But part of what's brought to the table is that standard, reliable accounting function where you are receiving, your information is being processed accurately and timely, you're receiving timely reports, financial reports, and you also have access to a wide spectrum of skill set in terms of management expertise and background to help with the decision-making process on a day-to-day basis. So if you ever consider investment in large assets, et cetera, and you really want to have another insight, another input on that decision, we'd be able to assist with that because we will be involved in your books, involved in your accounting. We know what's going on and what makes sense. And that also ranges all the way to the budgeting process and forecasting and basically trying to see a little bit into the future. So those are really usually, the core reasons why organizations outsource. It's because it makes sense to outsource. It's because they're moving into an area where it's evidence that they cannot have that kind of skill set and resources in-house or would be cost prohibitive. When you are dealing with government entities, municipalities, or entities that are subject to compliance requirements, whether it's audit or fiduciary requirements, then it adds another layer of complexity on top of that, because you go back to the comfort level. How comfortable are we as an organization, with the numbers that we're looking at on a day-to-day basis, and how accurate and recent and reflective they are of where we are at that point in time. And then also, ultimately, how comfortable are your auditors with that information and with the process in general. And we had a chance to look at some of the discussion that took place with the auditors, and some of the challenges, and they're typical. They're typical for any small, medium-sized organization, again, that does not have the resources to hire a full accounting department and have all those different levels and the separation of duties and the internal controls, etc. And what we offer is basically a way to kind of bridge that gap and provide those requirements in that process without having to incur the full cost of an accounting department. And it really, just like I said, it comes back to that very simple concept of you don't really need one person working 40 hours, you need 4 people working 10 hours each. And that's really what it comes down to. So, but you need them a different skill set, at a different level and background and exposure, so that you can actually cover that wide spectrum of needs. So in a way, when you look at our rates, for example, or what the proposal is, it's not really a cost for bookkeeping. It's more of a blended cost of what we think the overall cost is going to be for that full accounting department for that organization at that size, $7 or $8 million in revenue. So I think that's, I just wanted to kind of make sure that the concept and what is the logic behind outsourcing is clear. Of course, ultimately, the question is cost recovery. Well, how do we get our money back? I mean, we're spending that money, so how do we get it back? And experience shows us basically that once you have a proper accounting function in place, beside redirecting your core resources to focus on what really are the core mission, is the core mission for the organization, which ultimately either raises revenue or drives costs down overall, because you have more attention to your spending, you have more attention to the decision-making process, you have more attention to the things that matter to the end user of that organization. Also, long-term, there's always cost curve, because our pricing model is based on how efficient are we in providing that service, okay? And normally, I say when we start with a client, our cost curve is up here. And then over a period of time, it's really our job. That's how we actually can survive in this business, is to bring the cost curve down to this level. And that means we have an incentive to work with you as an organization to actually automate, improve efficiencies, establish business processes, all that is entailed that eventually will drive your own cost down. Because the more efficient you are, the more efficient we are, and therefore we all kind of curve the cost down on the long term. And within that function, within this whole process of us working with the organization in terms of cost controls, cost saving initiatives, better management, better efficiencies, the overall, basically, again, cost goes down, and then also if there's a revenue impact, the revenue would start growing. So you can take that concept and apply it to your operation, and you can see what would be the impact of freeing the town manager's time, for example, to focus on what really what impacts the core operation of the organization, instead of actually doing something that they're not necessarily want to do, nor they have maybe the skill to do it, and it's not really what they do. And then you end up basically having everything done sort of on a part-time basis with no enough focus or attention to do it really right. And that's really what our model is based on, and how our pricing is based on, and what we're presenting here. So.
you can see where we've made this pairing and the discussion that we've had about our audit and the weaknesses in the audit, where this covers our weaknesses and relatively quickly. So you can see why this is a potential option that we wanted to bring to the Board of Selectmen.
Do you do other towns? I mean, you do the water district, but
Mhm.
actual municipalities?
No, we've been in the region here for about 3 years now, and municipalities and government is one of our actually focus right now. We've actually added, March actually comes with very strong government and not-for-profit background, and they are a target segment for us, and we're also a local firm. I mean, you probably see from the faces here, they're probably, you know, most of us grew up here, well, not me, but they did. You know, but, and we're very interested in that segment, and we're looking to expand in it and provide that service because we feel there is a need for it, and you know.
In an ideal world, with our audit that we're going to receive shortly, we just got the draft, so I'm combing through it right now to see if there's anything I see that I need to bounce back off our auditor. But ideally, to fix our weaknesses, and Mohammed even said this, we would hire a bookkeeper, a controller, and then somebody to manage those functions. Ideally. Now, it's not an ideal world. We're not going to do that. We don't have that kind of money. So, you know, we've kind of stumbled across the services that Osmond Page puts together, and this is one of those solid options we need to look at. Or we need to look at freeing up somebody to do bookkeeping services and figure out how we control their bookkeeping. The controller is kind of the checks and balance, making sure that the bookkeeper is actually doing their job accurately, so that one person is following up another. Right now, the way we do that is we have one person doing bookkeeping, and I guess our controller is me. You know, we don't have the staff to take care of that in a perfect fashion.
If I might just share a couple of pieces of information too. There's actually a study that was released recently, specifically in that sector as far as outsourcing for government and utilities and municipalities. And it was interesting because what they found is out of all the outsourcing that was done, only 11% was brought back in-house, where people basically weren't happy with it or basically didn't work for them. And even though the study said it's 11% came back, I will look at it and says, well, it's a 90% success ratio, you know, on the other hand. So it's also important to highlight that this is sort of also where the business or the accounting function is moving towards, especially for small and medium size. Normally, 3 or 4 years ago, you would not even hear about this kind of service being offered to a small and medium sized organization. I mean, it was always large corporations that had the direct cost impact. But it's becoming more and more obvious as with the economy and the challenges that presents, it made that model more favorable to small and medium sized, because again, it's really based on giving you the same level of resources and skill set that are available to those large companies without having to really, you know, incur all the full cost of it. So.
How much was the proposal again?
I have it right here.
I know, that's why I asked.
$3,600 a month, which comes out to about $43,000.
And as I mentioned, actually, the proposal is inclusive of all the fees. So I'm sure there's probably payroll processing fees now that are being paid. There are other costs involved, printing costs if you're for checks, you know, et cetera. So those all get basically lumped into that process, and those costs are no longer your issue.
And now I obviously have a game plan. I don't usually bring you guys issues without coming up with a game plan. You know, I'm not sure if that's completely pertinent to why we have Mohammed here. I mean, we could probably ask him better questions. But I think we can repurpose some funds that we have already appropriated through so bringing on this service, which is additional cost. I think we can do it without affecting the taxpayers. We just have to move some things around.
How do you do that?
There's two different ways.
If you're gonna make them do it, you have to get rid of somebody, because you're not gonna, there's no way that you can
That's not true.
keep that same staff and keep paying out more money and save us money.
That's not true. I mean, we've restructured our code enforcement quite a bit. We're going to save $20,000 in code enforcement alone.
We're here to try to save money, but I mean, this not gonna save us any money.
No, but it's going to make us a
The other
better.
ones, I mean, that's all well and good what we're doing with code enforcement. What we're trying to do, we're trying to pay the cost down, but we're not, by outsourcing, they're not gonna do it.
No, but by bad bookkeeping, we've actually probably.
What's the sense of us trying to save money on this thing, then you turn around and hire somebody else to make it more expensive? I mean, that's not the idea of it.
No,
We're trying to save money.
we're here to better the organization. Now, we found a way to do it in one.
Yeah, but people, when they come in here, when they see something, they want to be able to talk to somebody that they're familiar with, and they know, and that people know what's going on in town and stuff. So, I mean, if you're gonna have to pick up a telephone, try to talk to somebody, people are not gonna go for that.
Well, if I can just clarify, when we go through the process of how we implement that, there are certain functions that we would tell you right up front,
I know, I mean, you had the town just down below us, they tried outsourcing, they took and called some of their stuff back, so what, I mean, so what, then you gotta go through all the process, try to change somebody again. So,
It's not a dissimilar service than what we just did with assessing, which was pretty successful, and we've outsourced to them. Now, the culture shock of having the assessor in 1 day a week when we were used to having them in 5 days a week, I think that's passed. I think people have realized that they're getting a better service for their dollar.
I would disagree a little bit with you, Jim, on the fact that while it's similar, it's also different.
yeah.
These are two different scenarios completely. We needed to cover that office, and we did so by outsizing. Currently, we have people in-house that are doing our bookkeeping. I need to see a game plan where we've got plenty of work for those folks as well if we're going to outsource. I agree with Douglas, just because we save money in one segment doesn't mean that we need to turn around and spend it somewhere else. But we do need to look at efficiencies. But we need to make sure that the team as a whole has enough work. If it just boils down to that we need to do some more training, we need to look at that as well. This is a good idea, but it needs more study. I need to see your game plan.
What is your game plan?
What I would come to you guys with is say that we're already contemplating a special town meeting in the winter. I would ask for permission to repurpose the salt shed money, which is more than enough to cover the first year cost. We'd have to do that through special town meeting. And then we've already come up with more than enough savings in the other department, the code and assessing department, to cover the cost of this service. So, I mean, I don't think we can view individual departments. We need to look at the bottom line, and that the fact that the town will save money at the end of the year with a completely different structure. So next year, our code enforcement office is going to run at $50,000 cheaper than it did in the past, and now we're talking about a $43,000 increase in the business office. I mean, it's still a net savings, and we're providing a better service.
The heck of it is the last thing I would want to see us do is give something up in capital. You know what I mean? You work hard to put that money away and to budget it, and then to take it away. I mean, you got to pay for it eventually. They need one. We all know that.
Right.
So next year that goes into the budget.
With the dynamic changes that we've had in this year's budget plan, it's not going to get executed the way we planned it out last winter. It's going to come out completely different. I mean, a lot of things have changed. So yeah, we would be taking a section that we kind of anticipated doing a project and not doing that project this year, and then going back to the drawing board, planning out a process to get that project done in another year. That's not one of those projects that was a this year has to happen kind of project. That was a ambitious project that we thought we could do to start collecting some cost savings immediately. So it doesn't happen. We plan it again in another year.
Yeah, but eventually, that, you know, $50, that $50,000 can come back and bite you. Whether it's next year or 2 years down the road, it's gonna come back and bite us. So, I mean, we've already, people already voted to budget the money, why, you know.
Yeah, we'd have to bring it back to the people
Yeah,
again.
yeah, I know, you have to bring it back in, but so 2 or 3 years down the road, it's gonna turn around and bite you again.
But the 15 years of poor management in the books has lost us money, lots of serious money. Money that I don't think we want to do long term.
I'm kind of with you on that one. I mean, financially, this town has not been running very well for a long, long time, and we gotta correct that. I mean, we have to correct that. Now, I agree with Chuck, we can research and train them, but I don't know if that's the long-term solution, I think is what I guess I'm trying to say.
We need skill sets that we don't currently possess. So we're going to train people to have those skill sets. We're going to have to put some significant money in there. I mean, then you're back at the question of where does that money come from in a place that we didn't budget for. So we'll have to find it again. I mean, this is the service that Osmond Page provides is a quick solution and one that, and you know, and sometimes you have to assess the situation and figure out, do we want a quick solution? Do we want a long, drawn out solution? I think when it comes to the financial responsibility of the town, we want a quick solution.
Would they be?
Currently, the way we're doing things right now, a good guess would be 20 to 30 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at bookkeeping aspects, I mean, who's doing the long-term financial planning? It's me. I mean, so.
No offense, Jim, but you should be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Have to get hired for to do that, so.
Well, I mean, if we think this.
Where you work on payroll what, 2.5 hours a week?
It's gotten better. I mean, payroll is
that's
taking
good.
much
So
less
that's,
time.
you know, so that's what, you know, to do our payroll takes, so, I mean, that's, you know, 8 hours, 9 hours a month, maybe, most.
I'd say when the functions that would be.
How can you justify, I just can't see how you can justify it.
Well, my point for the 20 to 30 hours a week estimate was if we're going to outsource, and I'm sure these people would do a fine job for us, but if we're going to outsource 20 to 30 hours worth of work that we're currently doing, we're going to have to find 20 to 30 hours worth of work to keep people busy, or
Yeah,
we're going to have to look at laying people off.
Right.
Well, I
We
disagree
can't
that we don't
afford
have
both.
enough work. Because the tertiary functions that we do in the business office are not what we're talking about. These are functions that we pick up with the staff that we have on hand, and we're doing the best job that we're trained possible to deliver good financial services to the town. But the truth is we just don't possess the skill set. And if we were to push that off, it's not like we still don't have a lot of work to do. I mean, we're still going to be doing all tax collection. We're going to be still doing all of our lean research. I mean, we still.
So maybe you ought to come back with a list of deficiencies that you think that we're having problems with, and see, let us look at that first before we try to outsource the stuff.
We're about to drop.
See what we're looking at.
I think we're about to drop that bomb with the audit. I thought that's what we discussed before.
I'd like to see, you know, deficiencies and stuff in the office and stuff, and see what, maybe we can just, you know, do some training, we can fix the problem. But I mean, you know, you just tell, you know, you just want to outsource, I just can't see it.
I think you're underestimating.
Financials, you're looking at what other work we're not getting done while they're working on that, right?
I think you're underestimating how bad the audit really is.
We get that one lady in, I mean, she can't mention, I mean, 30-some odd years, how do you get that out? People come in here, they can talk to her, they, you know, they can get information, they get answers. So, I mean, how do you give that up, somebody that's been here that long?
Who interacts with our?
Staying lay in.
Well, I know, but you know what's gonna happen, I know, you know, it comes down the road.
Could I just interject? My background, I came from a nonprofit. I worked there for over 20 years. I was responsible for internal controls and compliance, and I dealt with auditors. And I still think the issue that you folks are trying to deal with is the internal control piece. I mean, that's vital. That is so vital for an audit perspective. And if you only have a couple of people that have their hands, right now it sounds like Jim and probably Tracy, or
Yep.
you still don't have your structure for good internal controls. And I think it's also, and again, I'm just speaking from my experience of having over 20 years in a nonprofit with, there was designated funds, restricted funds, that it's really, you're right, Doug, it's the ultimate responsibility of the manager or the CEO, but you do need somebody that has strong accounting skill sets to help work with budgets, help work with things. You, in my opinion, you cannot lay that full responsibility on a CEO or a town manager and expect them to get the rest of their job done. It's just not, it's not possible. So, you know, coming from that background, and I can recognize that, you know, you are concerned about costs, but you really, again, in my opinion, need to look long-term, because if you don't take action on these issues that are out there right now, it's just going to be a domino. It's just going to catch up with you long-term.
I think this would be a slam dunk if someone had gotten done and we were looking to replace a treasurer or something like that. I think it would be a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think it'd be no different.
$40,000 is a lot of money. What do other towns do? I guess would be my question. I mean,
Yeah.
Let me just say, I think it's looking at the gross numbers also a little misleading, because this is what our cost would be, but then you have to go back and see what other costs that you are currently paying that you will no longer be paying.
right, but it won't be nowhere near. I mean, because we're still going to have the staff. That's your biggest cost.
Sure.
That's a given. So, I mean, if you want to take out postage and paper, it's not going to total up to 40 grand.
No, and and I agree with you. And I think that's why I said initially that this is really a decision about whether the town wants to invest in a proper accounting function or continue as is and having to have audit comments and issues every year. So I think that's, and I just want to be clear on that piece of it, that I fully understand that the direct cost that you're looking at right now in terms of the staff will remain as is, but again, this is a decision to establish an accounting function for the town and start actually moving towards having that structure in place. And that's really what, from my point of view, what the decision is really about.
Well, there's going to be training costs and time out of the office costs. It's hard to figure. They're just going to eliminate. And Douglas did make a big point when he kind of said to Jim, what have we got you for? You know, we hired Jim to manage the town, and I truly feel if he thinks this is the best way to correct all the things that have been going askew, and with a cost that's not gonna show right now, and I think he can restructure around it. My question is to let him do his job and manage the town.
Well, you guys have known me for a long time, and I'm a numbers guy. And right now, I don't have any numbers in front of me.
Yeah, right, me either.
I think one of the things we're all kind of, is there enough work in this office if the accounting aspect's gone to keep everybody busy? I hate to call you out, Bonnie, but you might. Don't?
Don't.
Okay, I won't.
Yeah, and I think there is. I mean, I think in the short term, I think there's definitely a lot. We fall behind during our really stringent period of the year when we're doing tax collections or when the warrant registration come in. And those are the times where you really feel the hurt that we don't actually have a finance department, because the person that actually has to attend to collections or vehicle registrations or warrant registrations puts off the financial things in order to attend to the customer. And the truth of the matter is the financials are more important, but we have to take care of the customer. So,
But going
How-
in the last year, we went from a crew of 3 people in the office. Whether they were doing their job or not doing their job, don't get into that. But we've taken away the tax bills, so there's a big job for them to do. We want to take away the accounting. I mean, you go from them being able to maintain for however many years, 10 years, we'll say, just for an easy number. I'm sure it's been much longer than that. You're taking a boatload of work out of that office.
I don't know about tax bills, because the tax bills were kind of falling on the assessor and the manager before anyway. It's not like the office staff, I mean, the office staff was sending out the tax bills, so I mean, maybe stuffing in envelopes and things like that. I don't know if that's relieving a burden on the staff. We're just trying to make things more efficient. I mean, outsourcing tax bills is something that even much smaller towns than ours did a decade ago.
And I'm not arguing that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, at what point do you say, well, geez, you know, I mean, they've got to have something to do. I mean, I don't mean to put it that way, but you know what I mean? You don't want to see them sitting there, I mean, taking that away from the treasurer, assistant treasurer, I forget what the exact title is, but I mean, the last thing you want to see is twiddling the thumbs, you know?
Yeah, and in the short term, I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see us get better at what our tertiary functions are. You know, I'm here to manage the town. You didn't hire me to be the controller or to do our, you know, you didn't pay me to do the daily functions of the bookkeeping that we would be just pushing off to Osmond and Page. And when I am doing those, you're taking my eyes off the things that we probably need to really focus on. And it's the same as with Tracy. I mean, Tracy her title is deputy treasurer, but that's a small portion of what she's doing. I mean, she's doing the organizational history that she has in her mind and that she's working on constantly is the most valuable thing there. If I could free her up from the burden of doing bookkeeping and financials, which she wasn't trained to do, I can get her to do her job much better.
How many times during peak season, you mentioned tax collections and registrations, have we had to bring in a part-timer to help?
I mean, we're doing it all the time. I mean, we really only have 3 main people in the business office, so anytime that there's, not during the peak seasons, but that's just because we limit vacations, we limit time off during the peak seasons so that we don't get into situations that we need to bring in part-time staff. But that's from management. And, you know, honestly, then we postpone the amount of time, the amount of opportunities that staff have to take vacation, and then they end up taking vacation in time off in times that are more convenient to us, and then we have to bring in that part-time then. So during the peak season, no, but we bring them in later.
I think you'll find that's common in pretty much any organization.
Yeah.
But if we're struggling to get the work done during peak season, I would have thought that would have been a good time to bring in a part-timer, and that could have helped the argument.
Oh, I mean, a part-timer that's trained to do the functions that we have, and our part-timer is pretty good, but not trained on all of our systems, not trained on all of our information. I mean, it's clunky. And then you're talking about inefficiency. You're going to have somebody that's going to come in and kind of fumble through a process. That's not efficient either. You want your employees trained up on your processes as best as you can. I mean, so that they're actually doing their job quickly and effectively.
If we were having this discussion in January, February, when we were doing our budget, so you could actually see where it's going to play out in the grand scheme of the budget, it would be, I think it would be a lot easier to discuss than now, you know what I mean, now that we're into a budget season. Because, I mean, we were all, I don't know if I'd say use the word excited to the thought about saving money this year with code and everything else, that we were going to actually be able to go back to the budget next year and actually have a savings.
Right.
And
now it sounds like that will all be gone and then some.
you know, I don't think all and then some. It's like I'm saying, we're gonna save nearly $50,000 in our code structure. I mean, don't you want to take advantage of the fact that we've found opportunity to fix other things with the money that we saved? So now that we stumble into a situation where we need money to fix a problem, we don't have to go to the taxpayers and ask them for more money. We found it somewhere else. So I actually I see it as opportunity.
I'd just be afraid that if we go to town, to a special town meeting, they ask to take the $50,000 out of capital that we planned on expending for a salt shed and move it to this, the taxpayers aren't gonna look at it very favorably.
I think if we went to the taxpayers and showed them 15 years of poor bookkeeping and millions of dollars that were probably mismanaged, they would probably not like that either. So, I mean, I think it's this or that. I think the taxpayers expect our financials to be locked down solid.
And I have no problem going on the record saying I'd much rather see our financials in better shape than a salt shed out there. The salt shed we got is functioning just fine as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I wouldn't disagree, but last year we had to go to the taxpayers to take some money out of Public Works to put it to the fire department to get the new rescue vehicle we got. I don't wanna see us
I know,
go.
there's a lot of shuffling going on,
Yeah.
but, you know, when the shuffling makes sense, it makes sense.
There's no question in my mind that this service wouldn't be a good service. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. The biggest question in my mind is, of course, money. And that's got nothing to do with you folks. I'm not saying you're charging too much, that's not what I'm saying at all. But
No, and I completely understand all the comments and the questions, and like I said, it's, experience has shown us that once you have that function under control and it's being properly managed, you are able to drive cost savings and recover that cost over the long term, as well as, you know, you have a huge fiduciary and compliance requirement as well. So it's, we actually in our business look at it as one of those, you know, unfavorable costs, so to speak. I mean, it's, you have to incur the cost, even though sometimes common sense doesn't, you know, jive.
so next meeting we'll have the audit.
I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on how long it takes me to review the draft audit and have them to respond. We're getting closer, but I mean, that's the longest audit that I've ever dealt with, because the complexity of the review was pretty expansive.
So I may just interrupt. I think this is one of the main areas also, the core areas that we want to make sure we mention, which is, it's the whole interaction between the town and the auditors and any other bodies that you deal with on an external basis. It's talking the language, to understand what they're looking for, and it's actually putting those policies and procedures up front. And it's common actually experience in you know, in that industry. When you want to fix an accounting problem, you can't fix it today for tomorrow. You got to fix it 6 months ago or a year ago for tomorrow, and that's really how delayed and the accounting process itself. So if you try to establish a new control today, from an audit standpoint, you need enough history before they can even start relying on it, and that's definitely one of the areas that we will assist with, and that's actually one of the areas that we have a strong background in.
I think whatever we do, gentlemen, we just need to make sure that we have an increase in efficiency as well as a transparent savings to the taxpayer.
I understand.
That's why I think a lot of it will help when we have audit in hand.
Yeah, we're getting close. I mean,
And I guess what I would ask is for you to put something in writing for us to show us where the money's coming from and how it isn't going to cost us any extra.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then that's not going to be as complex as you think. It's what I'm literally saying is that we would go the action. You'd have a set of action items, and the first thing you'd want to do is go to town meeting and ask them to repurpose that money that we asked for to be used in this purpose for another purpose. So it's already been accounted for. It's already been committed through taxes. It's already been collected. It would just be using it for a different purpose, one that I think is more imperative. That's going to pay for that this year. Then we're going to go through a budget process, which we'll see how this lays out. I mean, the new structure of of several services that we provide. We're gonna see how those lay out in a budget process, and we'll get a much clearer objective. We'll see how all of the services compared up to last year and how we plan on expending that money.
Would we be better off repurposing the salt shed money or repurposing money from both assessing and code? Because if we've saved that money by doing what we've done over there.
We could. No, that's a really good question, and the reason why I want to repurpose the salt shed money is because we're not going to have the opportunity to realize that project anyway. I don't think we will. All the other additional projects we've taken on have kind of postponed the opportunity to get that project done. So it may not happen this year anyway, so then it's just money that's going to go into the undesignated fund. That's the same thing that's true with the code enforcement and assessment savings, is that money, when it's unexpended at the end of the year, goes in the undesignated fund. So it's just a matter of how you want to theorize where the money's coming from. It's all the same money. Money's money.
Well, I was just thinking, if we did repurpose it from assessing and code and left the salt shed money alone, town meeting's already given us the approval to spend the money on the salt shed, so we wouldn't need to go back to town meeting to ask for that again.
Yeah, and the only reason why I would want to stay away from code enforcement and assessing is because that's pretty dynamic right now. I mean, we're still talking about how that's shaking out. So I like to keep the opportunity of that money there. Not that we plan on spending any additional money that isn't already been discussed at an open meeting here, but we've created opportunity. I'd like to keep it there. The salt shed project, I understand your point of view that our salt shed's fine, and you're right, it is still doing the job. This would have been an opportunity to get better efficiency.
By no means do I want to imply that it's not needed to be replaced at some point in time in the not too distant future, but I mean, for right now, the function and purpose of the salt shed is working fine.
Yeah, and this was an idea to build an independent salt shed, salt, sand, separate. We'd have more capacity, and then we could buy in larger quantities and save money over 10, 20 years. So the truth of the matter is we postpone it a year or two. In the long run, it's not going to mean anything.
This is just simply a matter of priorities changing.
Right.
But yeah,
Things get shuffled on the list.
in your household, if you put money aside and you're going to replace the fridge and then the oven dies, you take the money that you're going to replace the refrigerator, repair the oven, and then you start saving up for the fridge again. So that's I know that's simplistic, but that's simply what I'm proposing. Is we have this money here, we're going to do this, but this is more important. Let's just move it over here. It essentially costs us no more money than we had already anticipated. But it takes care of a big issue.
I think we're kind of underestimating the issue.
Maybe so, and I don't disagree with you when
It's
you
just
said Jim.
my take.
Jim points. I mean, Jim wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't looking at options. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. I don't want to make it sound like we don't appreciate you for doing that. But to quote one of your terms, we are the politicians, and we have to. It has to pass our straight face test. I guess.
Sure does. If you don't support this idea, then why bring it to special town meeting? Essentially, it's going to fail.
And I'm not to the point of that yet. I'm not saying I won't be, and I'm not saying I will be. I just don't know that answer. Not without more information.
I don't like bringing stuff like this up to special town meeting because all they did a special interest group. They could come in here, just like you guys did when you bought that property down here. Had 13 people and they voted for it.
I don't think there was 13.
Yeah, well,
we had a special town meeting, we had one, maybe two.
Count the board.
Oh, well, yeah, and the reporter.
And you guys, that was the big mistake. You know as well as I do now. Yeah, right. So,
And
I don't like special town meetings when we come out and try to shift money around and stuff like that. I mean, this water company thing, okay, that's fine, because that's water company's gonna pay for that and everything else, but.
The honest reality of it in past practice, we probably wouldn't have even asked special town meeting to repurpose that money. We'd have just done it. Now we're doing it legitimately. We want to make sure that we go to special town meeting.
No, you wouldn't have just done it. You would have built the shots and you wouldn't put it somewhere else. I mean, we wouldn't be doing that. I hope the board wouldn't be doing that.
Well, we can see it in past audits. I mean,
Well, past, we ain't in past anymore, we're looking in the future now, we don't care about what happened.
That's what I'm saying, is that we're trying to do this the correct way, have it above board in front of the people and say that this is an issue that needs to be addressed.
I think they called that misappropriation of funds. I think that's kind of like a label too.
Hasn't happened on my watch.
Right.
I can put that into some worksheet to explain what those action items are. But the more important thing is I'm not specifically trained to speak about finances. I'm not a CFO. I'm a small town municipal manager, and these guys can explain their services and how they can do them better than I could ever explain them. So that's why we have them here tonight.
I just can't see why you have any problems. I mean, that's what I say, you got to show me some deficiencies somewhere that we have problems.
That's where we need to see the audit.
Yeah, yeah.
When Don Talbot is in here, he will explain to you the issues.
On a different note, are they required to be bonded? If we was to go with Osmond Page?
That's a good question. I'm not sure the question based on MMA risk management services. I'd have to ask. But our bonding process is relatively simple because we're essentially we're pool serviced, so it's.
No, but it would be a cost to them to get bonded, correct?
It depends on how we structured it. I don't know. That's a good question.
And basically, I mean, when we implement the process, just to let everybody know, we don't actually have any authority to manage or basically move any of your funds. We don't have signature rights. We don't have anything that would actually create that kind of exposure. So in terms of controls, that part of the control, which actually creates that separation of duties that the auditors are always talking about. So you still have control over who signs checks and who transfer funds, etc. We're merely recording the activity and basically making sure it's properly reflected on your financial statements. But we haven't had any reason to be bonded. However, we are insured. Professional liability and general liability. Would be more than happy to.
That's where I was going to go next. Well. I'm sure you had professional liability insurance, and we would ask to get a certificate of their insurance, naming the town additionally insured. That's just standard protocol for the town. I don't think bonding is one of those things that we would even need to entertain because they're not going to handle funds. Yeah. And you can see from Mohammed's explanation where the separation of duties are important. I mean, the people that are signatures on our accounts right now are the people that are doing our financial work. I mean,
but you take when we hire a paving, they're not handling funds either, but we require them to be bonded. That's why I asked that question.
Performance bonded, which is a little bit different. We're bonding their ability to perform the work that they're going to do, and some of them don't actually take a bond. They provide that in a monetary fashion where they'd actually give you a check. It depends on the complexity of the paver. And then also that's a state law for a contract above and beyond 200,000, I think. I think any contract work with municipalities above $200,000 needs to be performance bonded. Do I have any additional questions for Mohammed and?
Actually, there is one. Hypothetically, we decide we're going to work with Osmond Page. What are we talking for a time frame? Like, if there's going to be a growing pain, you're going to have to learn our ways of doing things. I'm sure there's going to be a glitch here or there.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. Our typical process from the time we basically engage for the service, we would plan to start doing the actual work, the accounting and the bookkeeping within 30 days, okay? And our approach is always, you go live as is. As is meaning we don't change anything on anybody for that purpose. And once we're live and we start doing the day-to-day activity, and we start building the relationship and fine-tuning basically the process, because we do actually customize the process as we get involved. And then over a period of time, we let things stabilize, usually 3 months or so, until basically the transition actually has taken place. And then after that, we can start talking about, now let's work together and see long-term, what are the objectives, what are the goals, how do we want to reduce costs. Let's talk about possible increased efficiencies or automation within the organization. One part of our operating actually is also technology-based, so that's where we bring in some of this expertise to advise and say, okay, maybe you have a process that's done manually right now that could be automated or improved. Maybe we can actually connect two pieces together. Again, the purpose at the end of the day is that overall, as a group, we all bring the cost curve down and make the process as efficient and smooth as possible. So, but realistically, to answer your question, I think within 30 days we can be up and running in terms of doing the day-to-day activity, and then I would recommend somewhere between 3 to 6 months to start basically gradually streamline the process and just give it time to mature, basically, without causing too much, too many waves, basically, within the organization. So you take a very gradual approach to it.
I mean, I actually, when I think about what the service that Osmond Page would provide, reconciliation almost daily.
There was one, when we actually, 3 years ago, I mean, we've been here for 3 years, but one of the key things I think a lot of businesses that we deal with like is the fact that we're able to keep your cash position up to date, for example, on a daily basis. So it's that delay. You gain a lot of real-time access to information and stay away a little bit from this, whenever the financials are ready or whenever the CPA is here to actually look at things. And we started having a true financial reporting function on a daily basis, leading up to financial statements and month-end closing. And within that process, areas of improvement surface, opportunity for efficiency surface, and we bring it to your attention. We work within the inside staff and team to actually make that happen. And again, that's all part of what we bring to the table. So if I play a CFO role for the organization, I don't send you a bill every time you talk to me. Do we have an interest in actually making this as seamless as possible in terms of how it runs on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're doing reconciliation monthly, and when we get around to it, it would be nice to have that reconciliation done more often, or closer together. Have a better. The way I understand the service is that we could have reports done instantaneously. Yeah. Keep track of our finances up to date. Now, why is that important? I mean, we discussed the process of when we get to commitment and how long it takes for us to get our commitment completed, and then the tax bills out, and then to start collecting. And what created that 3 to 4 week window for people to pay their bills. Well, if our finances are that tight, that when July 1st comes around and we're getting ready for commitment, and now our assessor is dialed in, they're ready to do commitment on July 1st. Our finances, we don't have to wait to find out what our undesignated fund is until when the auditor gets in the door. We can commit July 2, and then we can open up 6 weeks, 7 weeks of that time people receive their tax bill to when they pay their tax bill. I think that's the service that we're trying to deliver for the taxpayers.
If I just may add, internally we have our own service level agreements, is what we call it, which is the turnaround time. And our turnaround time is, we want to make sure your information is processed within 24 hours from us receiving it. So if you get a bill today and you send it to us, we have it in the system within 24 hours. So if you have a meeting coming up and you're basically getting ready to pay your bill, that's how timely we keep things moving. We follow a standard accounting process for month end, so by the 15th of each month, we would have closed the books, did all the reconciliations, that are needed for that. In addition to that, since we're actually handling the day-to-day printing of checks, for example, for vendors, etc., we're able to actually reconcile vendor statements and making sure those secondary reconciliations, I guess we can call them, they're not necessarily the bank rec, which usually is the common understanding. There are other reconciliations, vendor statements, if there's customers, issues also in terms of cash application and how it was applied. So it's really day to day. You really have to look at it as having a full accounting department just sitting right there, processing information on a day-to-day basis.
I know one of our ambitions is to look at major projects, whether they be road or infrastructure. If we're going to do those, it would be nice to have the financial outlook of somebody that's better trained in those fields than what we have right now. I mean, we'd have to hire somebody to come in and advise us on how to borrow money right now.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for coming in. We'll be in touch shortly.
Did we not pay the air conditioning bill?
Huh?
Did we not pay the AC bill?
I didn't turn it on. You want me to turn it on? You're wearing a fleece sweater.
Yeah, but I'm going out when it's cold now, so that's okay.
Take your jacket off, it's all about right in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a long night. I don't know. Probably.
I wouldn't open that up for a while.
Appreciate your patience in that discussion. That's trying to find a solution to a difficult question. So if you're having trouble with it, I think anybody would.
Next on the agenda, approve the minutes of the previous meetings from 8/27/2012 and 8/22/2012.
We made a couple of changes.
I think
Yeah, this was.
And I got them, didn't I? Did you note whether I got them or not? I mean, I'm pretty sure I just went in and they're all blending together though, all the days.
we have a second.
I seconded
Any other corrections other than what I said here? All those in favor? Motion passes. Public comment?
Chuck,
Martin.
I like to ask you a question. Tomorrow's the 11th anniversary of 9/11. And I go to the Masons, the Rotary, Fire Department, and everywhere in town, they have a meeting usually, and they start it with Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to know why that you guys don't start your meetings with Pledge of Allegiance. And if it's something that you would take upon yourselves and pledge the flag before every meeting.
I certainly don't have a problem with it. I can't answer why we don't do it.
I don't think it's ever been brought up.
No?
What made you think of that?
Because
All the other organizations you go to.
all the other organizations I go to do it, and I just see it on the selectmen and they don't. And I think that representing the government, you guys should be the first ones.
Well, we did it
At
at
school.
at school, yeah. And that's
And
because
we do
were
it
asked.
at our town meeting.
I tell you what, that's pretty cool at the school. That was a lot of people doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, I wouldn't have a problem.
In my previous municipality, that's how they open meetings, the Pledge of Allegiance.
How come you haven't corrected us?
Can you make a motion and we accept it
I'll make the
from
motion.
now on?
Seconded.
All those in favor of the board doing the Pledge of Allegiance to start the meeting?
Better put it on our agenda so we remember.
It'll be there.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Bonnie's here for business.
She's here for business? Okay.
She's here for this.
What's this part?
All right, reports.
First report is obviously we've been working on the St. Andrews Task Force. This has been a really dynamic task force. They've received a tremendous amount of information from Lincoln County Health, and I could probably reiterate or try to reiterate most of everything that we've gone over in the last couple of weeks. but it's all been in the newspaper. It's all been on Channel 7. I've been trying to filter that stuff to you guys through via email, but I wanted to make sure that our board was informed. One action item that I'd like you to consider is that we are starting to solicit donations for people to participate in the task force. We'd received $3,500 to date, and actually more than that. We received some today. But we're receiving donations to work on the task force, and I thought that the board should entertain the idea of, we have contingency funds. We could move that with your authority and take a portion of that and put that into the task force. Now, the agreement that the four towns entered in says that that is a decision independently upon each town. So I'm just lobbing that one out there to you. Chuck has been selected the chair of the task force, and Chuck, do you want to add anything?
We've had a couple of regular task force meetings here. Our plans are to meet here at the office every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We have another meeting coming up tomorrow. Last Wednesday we had a meeting with Lincoln County Health leadership folks, and it was a good discussion.
Good. Candid?
Candid on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could report that we're knocking down the Berlin Wall, but right now we're just literally working.
Yep.
Yeah, processing information.
Yeah. If I could shout out to a couple of people that have really worked out. Freddie Luke has been amazing at all the stuff she's volunteered. She's kind of organized a lot of things for us. She's amazing. And then Peggy Powis has kind of taken on the role as the volunteer coordinator, because lots of people are saying, what can I do? Oh, we can only stay in contact with them so well, and she's taken on that role to make sure that everybody's doing some kind of role. They had a meeting here in the library. She's kind of recruited her own staff, volunteer staff, to make sure that the volunteer effort is continuing. They're going to have office hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 to 4. So if you're a little lost and want to do something on this project, come in here between 2 and 4. They'll find you a task to do, and there are plenty of tasks to be done. But Peggy's organization skills have been outstanding, and I'll report that to the task force board tomorrow night, but they just met here today. Any questions about the St. Andrews Task Force? Moving on, the NOAA grant, so this is the Back Narrows culvert that started off as a culvert and now has evolved into something much more complex, but as long as we're not paying the entirety of the bill, then I don't think we can move in that direction. So Mike and I met with representatives from NOAA and Wright Pierce, the engineer on the project. We went out to the site, walked all through the woods. Everybody else was dressed for the occasion except for me, so it was interesting. What we were looking at was a lot of the man-made and non-man-made items that are preventing the tidal flows from getting up into the water source. And it was really interesting that we had a specialist in wildlife and a specialist in fish species. They were explaining to us what they're looking at and how they're trying to get us to design our project so that it also meets their intent as well. Because at first I have to admit that I thought it was a pie in the sky kind of effort, and that how were we going to create an environment for fish species. But when you listen to these experts, they were actually very motivated about that site and thought it was ideal. So the next steps are the engineer takes all the stuff we learned from the site visit, they go back, they draw it up, bring it to the specialist and say, is this what you had in mind? When we get to that point, then we reapply for construction dollars. Now, the construction of that culvert is going to be much more expansive than we originally intended, and hopefully the grant amount pays for the difference. That's the idea. So we may be able to get something much more elaborate than a couple of culverts for the same dollars.
So this is moved beyond the box culvert that we were talking about.
But we're still talking about open bottom. But the things that NOAA would like to see is there's on the lower end, there's a rock dam that was put there, and I guess the history there is that was from the ice ice harvesting that they used to do in the upper pond. So they want to take that out. And then there's a huge beaver dam up on the upper end. They'd like to take that out. And I guess the theory is that the water, the cool water, as it comes into the ocean, attracts fish that will spawn upstream. And it's not my area, but it made a lot of sense when they explained it. But yeah, it would still be, for our purposes, an open bottom. And Mike, it was nice to have Mike there because we talked about the practical application. How do we actually build this? And there's some preformed concrete methods that we wanted to see if they work. So there's still a lot of trying to figure out where this project is going, but it was interesting. I think Steve, you drove by while we were out there.
It's quite a crew.
Yeah, it's probably an interesting crew.
What type of fish are they looking at coming up through there? Smells?
They told me, but I can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Alewives?
they're actually not targeting alewives because we talked about that. They were targeting another fish that spawns in fresh water. I can get that information.
Shad?
But no, it's way over my head. I mean, a fish is a fish to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can.
Flatlander.
The people that this was a problem to, and mostly Neil Cunningham, whose property is right there, is still encouraged by the fact that even though it's taken a while, he sees a better goal. So
It's going to lower the water in the whole area.
it would
The
severely.
upper pond, the lower pond, and clean up that gully out back of Linwood Giles, this old place.
I think somebody said it in jest, but maybe in 50 years when the water level actually does rise as they're predicting, then you'll have some ocean front there too.
And this will get rid of the beaver?
Yeah, there's no way a beaver
No way
can.
you're getting rid of the beaver.
The beaver's gonna get washed downstream is what it's gonna.
They'll be back.
Well, the way they would design it is right now there's a kind of a funnel up at the top of and it's easy for the beavers to build in there. We're going to take down that entire berm. Now it would be interesting. We don't know if this is one of those things where we'd be looking to get construction easements to go in there and actually publicly do the work, or if it's going to be one of those things where we just take the money and give it to a contractor that could do that. That will be a decision once we start seeing cost estimates and figuring out how it actually practically applies. A long way to go. I threw in front of you, it's not on my memo, John O'Connell stopped in today from Lincoln County. One of the things he tossed out is the aerial photography for the ortho project that they're doing. They wanted to invite everybody to that meeting. I don't think we're going to participate in an expanded role, so I just throw it out as information, but in case you wanted to go. And then additionally, Lincoln County is looking into the feasibility of providing ACO services. And I guess this is the first time they'd mentioned it. I figured it would be a nice time to kick it around and see if that's something that we'd be even interested in. We can save that for another day, or think about it, or discuss it now. Doesn't matter to me. In your packets, you'll see a memo from the MMA Workers' Compensation Fund, and I guess they teamed up with the Property and Casualty Pool where we received a dividend. Apparently, we're safe this year, so we received a $1,700 dividend check from the Property and Casualty and the Workers' Comp Fund. Department head reports. The first thing is we've always been addressing safety at the beginning of department head. We're trying to get our safety programs back to a stellar performance. So on the 1st of October, me and Lori from Code Enforcement we're gonna go do a safety audit on Public Works. I'd actually invite selectmen if you're interested, if you want to see how we're going to do that. More than welcome to come along. We haven't nailed down a time on it yet. And then in about 3 months, we'll have Lori and Mike do a safety audit on the town office. So then every 3 months, we're doing safety audits on one or the other. Maybe even at some point we get fire department involved, but their safety audits are much more complex. The back, in Public Works, the Back River Road is done. The aprons for everybody's driveways have been done. And I know that you probably fielded as many complaints as I did. But when you're constructing a road in the fashion that we did, it takes time. It doesn't automatically get done in one day. So I appreciate everybody's patience and the fact that the shoulders and the aprons took a little while. Now, this week they've pretty much focused on repairing all the equipment that we broke in the last few weeks, so we're hurrying up to get the paving done. We are changing a few culverts out on, I think, the Barters Island area. I'm going to do some ditching on East Side Road, which is one of our priorities for the next coming year, so we're trying to get ahead. And then we're going to start hauling winter sand here shortly. Just as an update, we received a driveway permit application, and that's the first one that we've received since we reported to you that we have complications in our driveway application method. So we'll try to work through it the best we can with that applicant. In code enforcement, we got a couple of major notice of violations out right now that we're monitoring. We'll see how those come across, and if we need action from the selectmen, we'll be in touch. Right now, our code enforcement office is reviewing the applications that they have. That went through a process at one point in time with the old staff and code enforcement, and now we're just kind of getting up to speed with how those applications look and if we would actually like any edits before they're formally adopted. Dan is preparing to take his test for his LPI within the next couple of weeks. I think he's tentatively thinks he's prepared. We think he's prepared, and we think he's just being cautious. But we're right on pace. What we had told you before, that he would be prepared before Art would be ready to leave. And then we continue. We're pounding away with training and code enforcement. We keep sending multiple people to all the code enforcement classes. We're going to blow up that code enforcement training budget this year, but we knew that was going to happen. In assessing, phone calls based on the commitment are starting to calm down. Mike has done a tremendous job in cleaning up old abatements. We found a huge series of abatements that had been granted, but they're not updated in the commitment. So then when they're processed again, they had to be re-abated. That's an uncomfortable conversation with a property owner, but Mike did a really good job with them. I had to bring on some additional staff for a little while, so I don't know if you guys met Paul while he was here, but he was helping him do those. The business office is preparing for November presidential election in the Boothbay Region Water District's question. I was going to print out a tax collection report, but I didn't get up to it. So I'll send that via email. Another thing that I wanted to point out is GA claims are starting to pick up, and it's just September. So just wanted to point that out, is that, you know, it's hard to figure out trends in GA. But when we start seeing pickup in applications, I want to point those out. That's everything. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's GA stand for?
General assistance.
All right, old business, the accounting service. I think that's tabled pending more information.
Sure.
And BRWD Southport Water merger.
So as we discussed at the last meeting, the water district is hired Maine Rural Water to advise them on how to get this question executed. So that what they discussed last meeting is that at this meeting you'll order the question, and that's why Bonnie's here tonight. The water district does want to do this very formally. I can understand why. When we do things, we do them a lot less formally. So in your packet, you have an order for the question. So that's pretty much ordering the clerk that the question will be asked. We'd like you to address that tonight, and we can use my copy as the original. When that order is made to the clerk, after that order is made to the clerk, then you can order the public hearing. Now the thing is, we've already asked for that advertisement to be put out. So Bonnie came in tonight, volunteered to come in tonight, in order to then have you act on ordering the public hearing. Then after the public hearing on the 24th, you can actually sign the warrant, and then we'll be done our portion of making sure this question makes it on the ballot. Well, except for the very painstaking process of actually asking the question, which Bonnie will do later.
So you need a motion for us to sign the order of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Boothbay for referendum vote and public hearing pursuant to 30A MRSA Section 2528-5 and P&S Law 2012, Chapter 25.
Exactly, and then postpone, we'll give it to Bonnie, and then act on the next, the municipal officer's notice of public hearing on secret ballot referendum issue.
I can't say so moved. Okay, he can. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to sign the order of the Board of Selectmen for the Town of Boothbay for referendum vote and public hearing pursuant to 30A MRSA Section 2528-5 and P&S Law 2012, Chapter 25. Questions? All those in favor?
Thank you, Bonnie, for coming in. It definitely speeds up the process.
And now you'll need a motion for us to sign the municipal officer's notice of public hearing on secret ballot referendum issue.
Yes, sir. And the reason why that is structured the way it is that in order to have the public hearing on the 24th, which is right on timeline, we would want you to address that order tonight. So, I mean, we've already assembled the public notice, but the formality of making sure it's actually done here is what we're doing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to sign the municipal officer's notice of public hearing on secret ballot referendum issue dealing with the Boothbay Regional Water District. Questions? All those in favor? Motion passes.
I can bring this by tomorrow when you witness it, so and deliver it.
So, my signature?
Doesn't have a signature spot on that one.
Maybe that one.
This one has a return notice, but I think that's for me to return to you as the resident that they noted to deliver the public hearing notice. So I think the most important thing is that that's delivered to you.
All right.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes.
Thank you for volunteering and having made it
Hold
easy.
that until morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, new business, MMA voting credentials. I hear Jim's volunteering again.
Gonna be there anyway. There's really nothing on the agenda. Approval of minutes. I mean, it's almost fait accompli. There's nothing to vote on, so you
You do the pledge of allegiance and everybody goes home.
vote on the minutes. Well, we're all there for convention anyway, so I would be soliciting you to designate me as the voting delegate, if you so please, so I can vote on the minutes.
I make a motion, we make you our
Voting delegate.
voting delegate.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Jim Chaosis as the voting member for MMA, voting delegate for MMA. All those in favor?
It's all yours.
This is the original. I can get you to sign the signature block and then I'll fill it in afterwards. I don't think there was anything for business last year either. So, MMA must be running well.
under new business, Sawyer's Island Road property. So it looks like a little corner on the side.
Yeah,
of the road.
there is, that stone wall's about 120 feet or so long.
What was the original reason for that? 35 by 35?
There was a school there.
Oh, what?
And whoever property give an easement to the town, that was way back in 1892.
Oh.
So just to recap,
That means 35 by 35 foot square, it just seems kind of
Right, so that's how it goes, so that's how it is. So he wants to put a garage in, he can't do it because he'd be almost up to that stone wall. So you can't get the side setback. So he'd like to get, Peter Hirsch like to buy this piece of property. He said, when it affects, it's him.
So-
Doesn't even go up to the community building, the stone wall
odd.
that's.
You say it's the wall that hits the road before it.
Yeah, right, before the community building.
so Mr. Burnham's been approached about the piece of property that I put in your packets. It's on the corner of Sawyer's Island Road and Isle of Springs Road, which is municipal property, which is within your authority to sell. Like I told Mr. Burnham, the only thing that I would have you keep in the back of your mind, and I know this is pie in the sky too, is that if you intend on using that for any other purpose, you'll never get it back. So if you're going to widen the road or anything like that, that's the time. I don't think we're doing any of that, but I throw it out there because that's my job.
In essence.
It is an off,
My only concern is for that easement area that's on that lot.
Calvin, hold on.
Yeah, how you take that.
What are the covenants for that easement?
We would be selling it with the same easement. So if they bought it, they would buy it with the easement. It's already deeded in there.
Yeah, right. That's way down in here, so that's way down in here.
I mean, private entities or private landowners can give utility easements as well. We've given this utility easement ourselves. So by buying the property, they would buy the easement as well.
See, I was looking to buy that piece of property years ago, and I don't know what happened, but Malcolm claimed he owned it. I don't know if the town give it back to him, there's no record of it. And because when I was thinking about it, Malcolm wanted an extra $500 for that piece of land. So see, Malcolm gave him the easement for the telephone company. Town didn't. Malcolm got paid for it. But that doesn't bother him. I mean, that won't bother Peter at all, 'cause that's way down here by the road, from the road, the garage will be up in here somewhere. That wouldn't bother him.
If we decide to sell this piece of property, we have to put it out to bid.
No, you don't.
No, we looked at the.
I mean, it doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah, we looked at our ordinance, and it doesn't specify that it needs to go out to bid, but it does specify that when we're doing land transfers, that the property abutters do get the ability to have some rights. And that's usually standard practice amongst towns.
And there's no about it.
Have we had another piece of property that we've decided to sell that we haven't put out to bid?
No, we haven't. I mean, we haven't really sold any property, so
You know, we put that in enough to bitch what the animal, what we get for it, $300.
yeah, it's like $300.
We can save the money by putting out, you know, instead of putting it out, I mean, you can save that money. I mean, they don't affect no, I mean, that road just, I mean, like I said, that stone wall was 120 some feet long. It was up, because it's down here as well. Maybe 30 some odd feet. from
Now,
there.
You're not restricted to put it out to bid. You can.
Yeah.
are we selling it for full value?
Well, make it, if he puts a garage there and he gets the property, he's gonna get more taxes.
I understand that, and I don't have any problem selling it. I'm just not comfortable not putting it out to bid. That,
Yeah.
that's my only concern.
If there's butters around it, that's different. There's no, I mean, no one's gonna, that's him. No one affects the whole, you know, it's him, there's nobody on the town and him, that's it.
All the hell about us across the road.
People, you know, I don't know where the hell down there, but I know about in the hall, so it's separate from, that, because Peter's land is in between them, in the hall, so it doesn't affect anybody.
Because I know any other property, to the best of my recollection, that we've ever sold while I've been on the board, has always gone out to bid.
Yeah, and that's the process
I
that
don't
we,
have a problem putting out the bids, I just try to save some money, putting the notice out and all that stuff, that's all.
I mean, that's.
I just don't wanna,
Yeah.
and I
It feels
understand, I
fine.
realize that this abutter's coming forward and saying, hey, I'd like to buy it. I do understand that, if I was living next to it, I'd probably wanna buy it too. But we can't make it look like we're just selling this piece of property because the abutter came forward and said, hey, we wanna buy it. Everybody should get a shot at it if we're gonna put town property up to bid. Try to sell town property, there we go.
You know, my opinion is that I'm not a big fan of keeping municipal property off the tax rolls, especially if we don't have an intended use for it ever. So whatever process you want it to go through, tax acquired land, we always go through the bid process.
Right.
So it's up to you.
But we're just talking about this 35 by 35 by 35.
No, that was
The whole piece
still.
from
That's the easement on the piece of property, so yours is,
You're talking this whole corner.
Yeah, right, just that corner.
and it's not valued at much, I mean.
6,000.
$6,000.
And I have my phone on because we did offer to Boothbay Harbor if they had any questions to call. I know
I
it's
hope she doesn't call mine, because I left it at home.
I touched base with a couple of people that were going to be at the meeting and reiterated that my phone will be on, so that's why I keep beeping.
Yeah, because I told her to give you a call, because you'd be,
It'll
it'll be easier for you to answer the questions.
I don't see if they have an easement, I don't know why not went back to the original
I don't know
owners
if
of
they
land
have either.
land either. I mean, I swear, I always was under the impression yours when I was dealing with Melton when I got mine land. I don't know.
Maybe it did, and they just never recorded the deed. If they didn't record the
Well,
deed, we'd be the last
he's
on
got-
the record.
We have the deed to the easement, but I can't, man, it's so small, I can't even read it, understand it, what it said.
Well, we had a deed. I mean, we don't know that's the last recorded deed. I mean, we'd have to do some deed research,
Yeah.
which isn't that hard. But all we did was go to the property file to pull out that copy of that deed that we had.
Maybe we should take a look at this case before we decide to sell this, if it did revert back to the original owner.
Which property are we talking about here?
This one.
Okay. Yeah,
If the
we,
easement is on it because it reverted back to the original owner, as has been alluded to here tonight, then we can't sell it.
yeah, we wouldn't sell property without going through a deed research process
Okay.
anyway. Really, the
Title
reason,
search is standard.
the reason why this is before you is because I just need to know if this is something that the board would entertain before we even go through the process of
I
making
wouldn't
it
have a
available.
problem selling it. Like I said, my only concern is if we didn't go up to bid.
Well, I'll make a motion to put out the bid.
I'd second it because I don't see any purpose to have that.
I'll get it back on the tax roll.
It's right on the corner of the
That's
road.
idea.
Plus, if he builds a garage, you can get more money.
Yeah.
So,
Motion's been made and seconded to put this piece of property, you have the map and lot, there, Jim?
Yep.
yeah.
Map R4 lot 36H.
To sell it, put it out to bid. All those in favor? Next under new business, Constitution Week.
In your packets, you'll see that we received correspondence from the National Society's Daughters of American Revolution, in which they're asking the Board of Selectmen to designate the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. We got this on the agenda as soon as possible. I guess the next meeting would be too late. And the Board of Selectmen did act on this last year. It's nice to see a DAR that's active. So it's in front of you.
Motion to make September 17th to the 23rd Constitution Week.
Yeah, I would say you would
Proclaim it.
proclaim it according to the resolution that the DAR has given us, as he said.
And the two resolutions that you put in here, those are identical, correct?
Yes, I didn't realize what had happened is I copied and accidentally put
Yeah, we'll
2 in my
find
packet.
some stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be-
Happens when I'm making packets.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd of 2012 as Constitution Week in the town of Boothbay. And we can't proclaim it for anybody else.
You can't. You don't have that authority.
All those in favor? Motion passes.
So I think this is looking for an elected official that he could sign as the signer, and I'll have
It's not big enough for me to sign. It's not the rules office.
Ordinarily, I probably would have retyped the resolution, but we had limited time. Thought the intent was the most important.
Next on the agenda is public comment again.
Go ahead, Martin, do it again.
I just asked a question, if you're gonna sell that piece of property, is there any other ones out there that need to be up for sale that are off the tax map?
Oh, yeah,
Don't go there.
Yeah, there is.
Well, if there is, and we're losing money on it not being on tax map,
You got the Smith property, you got the
that
Smith.
might be what'll fund your,
You got Chucky's property up there, that Smith property up there. You got where the old animal hospital is. Here. There's land.
There's always properties that can be looked at.
you're losing thousands of dollars every year on them, they're just sitting around.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. We'll have to bring that, you have to get in, put it on the agenda so we
If
discuss
they're,
it.
if they're there, why are they there if they're not being offered back out? I mean, do you have an explanation what's gonna be done with these properties in the next few years?
Well, that's,
I haven't heard anything.
there's nothing here about it, they never did business for that, actually, what they're supposed to do anyway on that property, Smith property. So it should come back on a tax map.
What municipalities often do is because you automatically acquire land through tax process, is that at certain points in time when they realize that some of these properties need to be addressed, you inventory to see all of the properties that are owned by the town, you specify which ones are being held for purposes in the future, and then you do a mass bid process for the other pieces of property. So we could do that in conjunction with the foreclosure that happens in December, and that would be right in line with what we normally do. So we create the inventory now, and then by December, you'd know what properties would be up for bid.
It's fine with me.
There's a similar project once upon a time.
Okay, I'm gonna take a look at it then.
So inventory the municipal properties.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, we'll review the warrants and sign them, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?